mathematicians. Today we are going to solve one-step equations involving addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. When we're solving equations, our goal is always to get the variable alone. To get the variable alone. We always want to get our variable by itself, so we're going to have to get rid of all the other pieces. It's really important that we keep our balance. So what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other. What we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. When we are getting the variable alone, we need to undo some operations. What operation undoes addition? Subtract. Okay, to undo addition, you will subtract. The opposite of that then, to undo a subtraction, we will add. If our equation involves multiplication, how will we get rid of multiplication? Divide. And if our equation involves division, how will we get rid of division? Multiply. So keep that in mind as we are solving these equations. So for number 1, here's my equal sign that breaks it up into two different sides. What's our variable? A. So I need to get rid of this plus 7 because it's on the same side as A. How do we get rid of a plus 7? Minus 7. And what we do on one side? You must do to the other to keep that balance. What happens here? 7 minus 7 cancels. A equals 6 minus 7, negative 1. If we wanted to check and make sure our answer was correct, what could you do next? Plug it back in. Negative 1 plus 7. Need to make sure that equals 6. So we know we did it right when you plug it back in and make sure those are equal. Nice job. Let's take a look at number 2. Remember, our equal sign breaks it up into two sides. Our variable is a y. So what do I have to get rid of on the side of y? A minus 7. How do we get rid of a minus 7? Add 7. And what we do on one side? Must do to the other. What happens here? They cancel, leaving us y equals negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1. Okay. So get rid of what is with the variable. Make sure you do it on both sides. Our variable is now alone. Try number 3 on your own. Let's see how you did. Here's my balance in between, so there's my two sides. Our goal is to get x by itself, so what did you have to get rid of? We got rid of a minus 4. How do you get rid of a minus 4? Plus 4. And what we do on one side? Must do to the other. These cancel. X equals 2. Plug that in. Make sure that you got the correct answer. Nice job. For number 4, if I look at the side W is on, here's my W. What is attached to the W? A times, a secret times, and a 2. How do we undo a times 2? Divide by 2. And what we do to one side, you must do to the other. These cancel. 2 over 2 cancels to 1, so I have 1w equals negative 4.5. Some of you may be able to tell the answer to these just by looking at the problem. I still want you to go through and show your steps because these are important steps that you need to use as we continue on in this chapter. So even if you can tell the answer just by looking at the problem, please make sure you are still going through the steps, showing your work, because you're going to need those skills in the future. When we look at number 5, here's my variable x. What is with this x? A divide 3. This fraction bar is a divide 3. How do we get rid of a divide 3? Times 3. And what I do on one side, must do to the other. These 3's will cancel, leaving us x equals 21. So if I plug this back in, is 21 divided by 3 7? Yes. For number 6, how do I go about getting n by itself? Times by 3. And what we do on one side, must do to the other. Now this is a fraction over here, so make sure we write it as 3 over 1. These will cancel, leaving n equals, and how do we multiply fractions? Straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Now if I put the negative with the 2, do not put it with the 5. So the negative only goes with one of those. And it doesn't matter which one. 5 times 1 is 5. And since this is improper, 5 goes into 6 once with 1/5 left over, and it's a negative. So 5 goes into 6 one full time with 1 of the 5ths left over. For the next two, we need to write an equation first for the word problem. In number 7, Vivian practiced the piano for 32 minutes. So Vivian equals 32 minutes. Vivian practiced for 32 minutes. What do we know about Vivian's practicing? She practiced 11 minutes less than her brother. So I need to replace Vivian with 11 minutes less than her brother. What does the word less than mean? A minus. Okay. And this is one of those situations, less than, I have to flip this. So 11 is actually going to come last. And her brother. Since we don't know how much her brother practiced for, I'm going to put a B there to represent her brother. So 11 minutes less than her brother equals that 32. Now we need to solve for her brother. Okay, so go ahead, and there's our two sides. We want to figure out B. So how do I get rid of a minus 11? Plus 11. And what I do on one side, must do to the other. These cancel. How long did her brother practice for? 43 minutes. Okay. So Vivian, it was equal to 32 minutes. I knew that Vivian practiced 11 minutes less than her brother. When I solve, her brother equals 43. Go ahead and for number 8, set up an equation and then show your work and solve. Let's see how you did. Negative 18 becomes a number. Times, what does the word times indicate? Multiply. A number, what do I put in place of a number? A variable. Equals, was our equal sign? 198. To get x by itself, what did you do? Divided by a negative 18. And what you did on one side, you must do to the other. When you solved this, what did you get for x? Positive 11. Remember, you can check your work by plugging this back in and seeing if it is true. The last thing we need to talk about is if we have fractions connected to our variable. To get rid of a fraction, we are going to multiply by the reciprocal. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal is just the fraction flipped. Just the fraction flipped. So we're going to multiply by the flipped fraction. So if I look here, I have a times a fraction. You could divide by fractions, and dividing by fractions is easy as pie. Flip the fraction and multiply. Flip that fraction. We call that multiplying by the reciprocal. I'm going to flip it and multiply. So to get rid of that fraction in front of x, we're going to flip it and multiply. The nice thing here is these diagonals cancel, and these diagonals cancel with each other. So x equals, and if I check this diagonal here, what can I divide this diagonal by? Divide by 2, divide by 2. I am left with 5 times 3, or 15. So to get rid of this multiply type 2/3, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. It's the same thing as dividing. Okay? Flip it and multiply. Try this next one on your own. Let's see how you did. There's my two sides. Here's my variable. How did you get rid of this times 4/9? Multiply by, the reciprocal is 9/4. Multiply both sides by this fraction flipped. That's called the reciprocal. This diagonal cancels. This diagonal cancels, leaving us with W equals, I can simplify this diagonal here first, divide them both by 4, this becomes -2. -2 times 9, -18. So to get rid of that fraction, flip it and multiply. Nice job today, mathematicians.